Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Graham. I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. Joining me today is the investigator in charge, Ruben Payan. And joining me also is Sean Lynham, the Chief of Pipeline and Hazardous Materials with the NTSB. Today I'm here to give you an investigative update on the NTSB's investigation into the February 3rd Norfolk Southern freight train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Once again, I'd like to thank all the first responders for their work at this scene and all they're doing to making sure and verify safety for all of us. As a reminder, the NTSB is on scene to gather perishable evidence at this time. The analysis portion will start once all the perishable evidence is gathered, and we are here just to gather the perishable evidence at this time. Eventually, our team will methodically and systematically review all the evidence and consider all potential factors to determine the probable cause of this accident and make any necessary safety recommendations to prevent it from happening in the future. The information I'm providing you today is preliminary only. Once the scene is safe, the 10 hazardous material cars involved in the derailment will be moved to temporary staging areas for further damage assessment. For the safety and protection of our investigators today, the drone team did a full scene drone mapping of the derailment scene in lieu of having to do a walk-around assessment since the scene is still not safe. This information will allow the NTSB to create a diagram to verify the train consist, which is the document that identified the number of rail cars and the commodities those cars were carrying. The team secured the locomotive data recorder data today. They also were able to get a forward and inward-facing camera video and audio recordings today. We will conduct a preliminary review of this data on scene to start the development of a timeline. The data will then be sent to the NTSB's vehicle data recorder lab in Washington, D.C. for a complete evaluation and analysis. We have obtained 2 videos which show preliminary indications of mechanical issues on one of the rail car axles. We are working to identify which rail car experienced the potential mechanical issue for further examination. If any other members of the public have any photos or videos of the derailment, we ask you to send them to witness@ntsb.gov. That's witness@ntsb.gov. The team did crew interviews today. We can say the crew did receive an alarm from a wayside defect detector shortly before the derailment indicating a mechanical issue. Then an emergency brake application initiated. Additional investigative activities the team is doing today. We have requested numerous records from Norfolk Southern. These include track inspection records, locomotive and rail car inspections and maintenance records, train crew records, and qualifications. And the track team today conducted a 1-mile walkthrough of the track outside the hot zone, the unsafe area, and they were able to identify the point of derailment. This will be the NTSB's last on-scene press briefing. The on-scene portion of the investigation will continue as long as necessary, so the investigative team will be here continuing to gather evidence as necessary. As a reminder, a preliminary report should be expected in about 4 to 6 weeks. A full investigative report or investigation takes about 18 to 24 months with a full investigative report at the end. You can continue to follow us at on Twitter at NTSB_newsroom. I will now take some questions from you on the investigative process the NTSB is doing. And when I call on you, I ask you to raise your hand. I'll call on you. Please state your name and your affiliation. Any questions?
Chris DeRose, CBS News Pittsburgh. You mentioned the crew. We know that there were no fatalities. Can you speak to the health of the crew? Did they suffer any injuries?
Okay. The question is basically the crew's health and if there were any injuries or anything of the trained crew members. There were actually 3 crew members. There was an engineer, a conductor, and a conductor trainee. I am not aware of any injuries or anything like that. As a matter of fact, after they were able to bring the train to the stop, the conductor went back and decoupled the locomotives from the rail cars and moved it to a safe location afterwards, which would lead me to believe there were no injuries, but there were none reported at this time. Yes?
Mary Ann Greer with the Morning Journal. You mentioned that you determined the site of exactly where it went off the rails. Can you tell me where that is along the rail line?
Okay. The question is, we were able to determine the point of derailment and where that is along the point of the rail line. We will release that data with the preliminary report, the exact location, but the track specialists were able to annotate exactly where that happened at. Okay. Yes?
Abigail Cloutier, WKBN News. I'm seeing some video going around on social media from somebody's Ring doorbell, possibly showing the defect you guys mentioned maybe 4 miles out of town. Are you guys aware of, or when this defect was detected, how far out it was detected versus when it derailed? Yeah. So the question is basically, there's been video out there of a potential defect and when and how far out I would say the crew or anybody was aware of the defect. That is part of what we're looking at right now, exactly where that was, how far out it was, the location of the defect detector, and in the crew's response. That'll be part of our analysis in the investigation. Any more?
Stephen Banfield, WPXI Pittsburgh. The rail cars that caught fire and the chemical that's burning, can you tell us, we know it was en route to Conway, but can you tell us where its final destination was to be?
Okay, the question is some of the chemicals that have caught fire and everything like that can I tell you the exact final location of those chemicals? I don't have that information at that time. That was something that Norfolk Southern would have, and so at the NTSB right now I couldn't tell you that.
Follow up on that. From your preliminary report to the fact that they were able to unhook the train, the engines, preliminarily, of course, does it look like these guys did what they were expected to do?
So the question is basically, after the witness interviews with the crew and everything, do we think that they did exactly what they were expected to do?
Trained, I guess.
They were trained to do. At this point, we're not going to do any analysis on our interviews. We're verifying their statements with the event data recorder data, and we'll be looking at the inboard-facing videos and things like that and audio recordings to basically analyze the crew's conduct and everything. And that's in the analysis section of our investigation. One more question.
Mary Ann Greer again from the Morning Journal. Do you have any idea how long it'll be before this is all cleaned up?
Okay. So the question is, do we have any idea how long it'll be before this is all cleaned up? At this point, I can't tell you because, we still have a hot zone in there that's actively being monitored, and when they say it's safe to go in, then crews will be allowed in there to clean up the site. There will be cars that we'll need to look at that will be staged for us to do further inspections once they are safe.
Will those cars be staged here or taken somewhere else?
So the question is, where will the cars be staged? I would assume those cars will be staged nearby, okay. Not far, but I can't tell you for sure. They will be staged in a safe location as not to is to allow the cleanup of the site. and allow our crews to get in there and assess the damage. Okay, with that, I want to thank you very much.